Probably still need a little more time to
Settle in.
roll in a little bit, but that time is not okay. 9:01.
Yeah, that's
I'll
fine.
give like 1 or 2 minutes to one or two.
Sure.
Good morning. How's your Wednesday? This Wednesday? Oh gosh.
Halfway there.
Only few more classes, you know. We got 2 holidays, right, for the end?
When's the last day of class?
Well, April 12th.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
Oh, that's my wife's birthday. Ooh, good. Oh, good, probably. It would have been bad if I don't remember that.
Yeah, it was a nice reminder.
We're just giving a few minutes for folks to come in, as always. Hi, yeah.
Morning.
Hope you get the notes. It's on A-class if you don't have it yet.
Well, Deanne, I recognize you because you are a yoga and fitness instructor, aren't you?
Yoga instructors, that's where I can.
Yeah, sorry, yoga and fitness instructor.
Yes.
Okay, I've done your classes.
There you go.
Awesome. At Moksha, yeah, and then at the Glen Rose, you did some classes there for us. Yeah, there too. So cool. Well, I love to see your face in class. Sweet.
Yes,
And
we get started.
Sure.
Sure. All right, well, thank you for everybody coming in this Wednesday, and welcome to the guest lecture, first guest lecture. And we have special guest from Alberta Health Services today. This is Kari Med here, and we've known what 5 years maybe since before the pandemic.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
get to know each other before the
And
pandemic.
then
Yeah.
pandemic hit.
Yeah.
So, but she's been a great person to work with in terms of the TRRT, and I've learned a great deal from Kari and her colleagues as well. And very happy to have her today. And I'll just because she switched the, changed the role recently. Not recently, but
Yeah, fairly
some time ago.
recently, September.
So I'll just let her speak to what she does and how she got there. But if you have questions, ask away. If you want to know, like, are there any jobs? Ask away. So we'll
Certainly, yeah. Thanks, Jen. Nice to be in person and see faces today. Like Shin said, I did start a new position in September, so I've been holed up in a bedroom in our home. That's an office now. So getting ready this morning and getting here was like, and I got to like put on real clothes, and so it's good. And I'm glad to see you all. So Shin asked me to come and talk about whether theory really supports practice in the field of recreation therapy. And he sent me a copy of the textbook you're reading, and I went, oh goodness, okay, been a hot minute since I read a textbook. But you know what, I pulled it up and I just perused it because I actually had Gordon Walker as an instructor when I was a student here, and had a look through it, and I tried to make some links as to what we do in practice. And I think this is a good demonstration. Just pull this off Google. You know, we've got this theory and it's very clear, and this is what happens and this is how we do it. And then in practice, it just gets all mangled up and we mix and match and pull it all together. But when you do really think about it and pull it together, there is some clear lines with some ups and downs in it. So I thought this is a nice little demonstration of what our world looks like in practice. So Shin wanted me to talk a bit about myself, where I come from, how I got here. I want to know a little bit about you, what you are up to, what your interests are. I'll give you a quick overview of rec therapy, talk about some challenges, some trends in our field. And then we'll talk a little bit more specifically about theory and practice. The education, other skills and knowledge, the competencies required for practice in recreation therapy. And then, well, that's going to sound so great. You're going to go, how can I be a recreation therapist? And I'll give you a little bit of insight into that. So this person, I thought, well, there's not just like one me. I have so many different pieces to me. So I threw in 3 pictures, and as you can see, I wear a lot of glasses and like to have fun. I was actually out on White Ave with my daughter, and we were at the junk cellar, and we we're trying on these crazy glasses. So that's that. This one up here, I love snowboarding. It's my passion. I started when I was 40 years old. I took my son's snowboard down a little hill by a house that we used to live in. And I was like, yeah, this is for me. But I was 40. So then I said, I better go take lessons so I don't break a hip. So I've been doing that for many moons. And I love it because every time I go out, there's new challenges and there's new things that I can do and try. And then, of course, there's also the social component. I have a quad pod that I go with. There's 4 of us girls that go out snowboarding together. And then I was actually in Jasper a few weeks ago with a colleague. Our national conference is happening in Jasper in May. So we got comped a few days at the Jasper Park Lodge to check it out and see what the services and the offerings are. It was minus 36. We were going to go snowboarding, and then we were like, oh, that's a big hard no. And so we bundled up and we went down into Moline Canyon where there was no wind. So those are a few things I like to do. I also like to paddleboard. I like to do yoga, do a little fitness, that kind of thing. And I spend time with my family. I have 3 adult kids. I am a 7-week Mimi grandma, and he's my pride and joy now, and had the opportunity to do a first with him and his parents. On Sunday, we took him swimming, and it was just amazing. So, you know, I always said I never really knew what I wanted to. I knew what I wanted to do, but I never knew they were going to call me a recreation therapist. So I think, you know, I don't know if you guys ever had Karen Fox as an instructor along the way here. She retired a couple of years ago, hey? Yeah. But so she had us thinking really outside the box, and like, what was our connection? And that's where I really went, okay, this is probably why I do want to do what I do. But I grew up in the Yukon. We always did outdoor activities. We were always privileged to have the opportunity to be involved in school sports, in sports outside of school, in like all the activities, Girl Guides, that type of thing. We had a really strong community where we had lots of activities to do at the community hall. And I saw that there were people in my community that didn't have the same opportunities as I did, whether it was based on their race, their income, just their general cultural background, right? So, and they were my friends. And I was like, well, why aren't they here? And I really feel that everyone has a right to be involved in things that they enjoy and love, and recreation and sport. So I coached throughout my years. I coached gymnastics. Now I say I don't fly anymore, but I think all those things kind of added up to where I am now to really make me go, okay, well, this is what I want to do. This is why I want to do it. So, yeah. Yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Whoops. My pathway. So I went back to school when I was 27 years old. I had my 3 kids before that. So I went back to school with 3 kids and did my schooling here at the University of Alberta. And then I ended up doing, it took me 7 years, so I would say I could have been a darn doctor. But anyways, you know, I am where I need to be right now. And I did my placement out at Alberta Hospital Edmonton in forensics. And I really, that was because I wanted to work with a real marginalized population. And so I did that. And then I started out there in acute psychiatry. I did 7 years there, and I went back to forensics, did 8 years there. And I've always been had the opportunity to work amongst other recreation therapists. So I never worked solo, isolated. which was very beneficial for me because you learn from others, right? And you have that support and you have that network and you have someone you can bounce ideas off of. So the Alberta Hospital had a really strong recreation department. They still do. And so it was really nice to be part of that and learn and grow there. From there, I moved over to the Glenrose Rehab Hospital, and I worked in the specialized rehabilitation outpatient program, and primarily with brain injury and stroke. And there my role changed a little bit from what we call a recreation therapist 1. So I went into a recreation therapist 2, level 2 position. So that's a little bit more of a leadership position. I'm not used to talking this much either because I sit in a room by myself and make my brain go. So the recreation therapist 2 position, the leadership there was guiding practice a little bit more. So looking at professional practice, what we do, how we do it, and how we do it standardized so that everybody gets the same services, whether you're seeing a rec therapist on the inpatients or whether you're seeing a rec therapist on the outpatient program. And just ensuring that we're doing safe, effective, and competent practice, that we're not putting anybody at risk in engaging them in these types of activities. The other piece of that role was as a clinical educator with interprofessional student services. So that's a very specialized program where we're very focused on the interprofessional practice. So we worked with OT, PT, and SLP, and we looked at where our roles overlapped, how we could collaborate together, the importance of communication to ensure that the patient is able to reach their goals with the support of the whole team around them. So that was the leadership piece that got me into that. In between and along the way, I've also volunteered with our professional association. I was the education director for 4 years at some point along the way. They say it's a 2-year position, and then you always end up doing 2 more because you're just starting to get the hang of it. And then I was president of our association as well for 4 years. And during that time, we really, we had submitted a proposal to Alberta Health, which is separate from Alberta Health Services. They oversee Alberta Health Services. We enact the services. So we submitted in 2010 a submission to Alberta Health to become regulated healthcare professionals. We're still in talks. We're still in the process. But with that came a lot of learning outside of the practice, right? We really learned about, or I really learned about the act itself, the importance of ensuring that we are not putting Albertans at risk, and that we are engaged in standardized practice. So that was very informative and a learning pathway to where I am now. So now they call me the practice director for recreation therapy provincially. So I do that same sort of thing, overseeing across the province to make sure that people are engaging in safe, competent, effective practice, that we have some standards, some pathways that we followed, we have what's called core clinical activities. So within each population group, there are certain activities that we would engage them in that would support their rehab goals. And we really view our team, it's the Allied Health Professional Practice team, we really view everybody in the healthcare system having a potential for rehab. So whether you're in long-term care or dementia care, or if you're had a stroke, or if you have a mental health concern, we consider everybody having the potential for rehabilitation, so improvement. And rehabilitation also means just to live to that optimum quality of life, right? So, so that's our goal across the way, essentially with rec therapy, is to support people in their well-being, to live optimally and have that quality of life that they identify for themselves. So I think that will fall into some of the theories and the conversations that you guys have had over the last few months. So I want to know a little bit about who's here in the room today. So how many of you have heard of recreation therapy? Yes. Hallelujah. That's amazing. Okay, awesome. So, and how many of you are thinking that that's a pathway for you? Awesome. So awesome. Sweet. That's pretty good. Like if you think about it, like 8 out of the what is 40? So that's pretty awesome. So I was hoping you guys could just part of what we do as recreation therapists is in kind of that rehab approach is help people find their why they want to do an activity, why it's important to them. So essentially we're supporting them to find their this is what happens when you get older. You forget your words. And then this is also what happens when you stash in a room and you're socially isolated. Benefits, the benefits of the activities that you do. So I was hoping you guys could just like gather in groups of maybe 4 or 5. I want you to identify your, oh, you don't like to do groups. You don't like to chit chat. That's okay. You can do it on your own if you're not into like sharing with others. That's cool by me. It's whatever you're comfortable with. So think about what your favorite leisure activity is and what's your why. And let's think outside. I mean, certainly if your favorite activity is like basketball game or, you know, that's fine. But think outside of that. Like I see an Arkel's hat. Like, is your leisure activity maybe like going to concerts for, you know, music, that kind of thing? So I think sometimes we get fixed on leisure as a physical activity, right? And of course, there's so much more to it than that. There's, you know, there's the creative aspects, the arts, the music, the cognitive stimulation piece. So I'm going to give you like 5 to 7 minutes. I want you to share, if you want to, with a few others, what your favorite activity is, and try and figure out what your why is. This is something, you know, when we do an assessment with people, we don't often think about this. We might because we're, you know, getting an education in leisure and recreation, but your why is really important. So go ahead. Okay, 2 more minutes. So wrap up your thoughts, please. All right, you guys, are you ready to come back? Awesome. So I shared with you at the beginning, you know, my passion for snowboarding and my quad pod. So for me, and so I hope you got out of that the benefits I see are, you know, the challenges, the social piece and nature. Those are my top 3 kind of benefits that I see in the activity that I choose as my number 1. And one of the things we do as rec therapists is we look at that whole person. We just don't say, okay, well, you're Mrs. Smith who's had a stroke and you've got some hemiplegia and some cognitive concerns, right? So we look at the whole person. We look at what their interests are, who their social connections are, what their needs are once they move forward. We look at their person and the adjustment and the adaptations that they might have to work through to get back to being who they are. So was it difficult for you to identify the reasons for the activities that you really enjoy? Or is it like right there? Okay, it was right there.
Yeah.
How about you guys? Was it right there? Did you know exactly why you like to do what you do? Oh yeah, okay. How about you over here? A little bit of both, yeah. It's not something we typically think about right off the top, but it is important. And so yes, I did read some of, whoops, wrong way. I did read some of it. pulled this little quote out from the textbooks. I'm sure you guys have this memorized. Thank you for getting my humor. So social psychology of leisure has been concerned with how people choose to fill and structure their time with behavior and experience, why they make these choices, and the impact of these choices on their well-being. So when we talk about well-being, we talk about physical, emotional, cognitive, social, and spiritual well-being. So all of these activities, all the things that we choose to do in our leisure time impact all those realms of our well-being. And when I say we look at the whole person as a recreation therapist, those are all the components that we look at, right? And when we talk about a balanced and healthy lifestyle, we look at, do they have all of those components? Do they have the social connections? We learned through COVID that the importance of social connection and the impact of social isolation on people's well-being, and not just their emotional well-being, but their physical well-being, because they didn't have the people to connect with and go out and do activities with. So I think COVID really taught us a lot about the social psychology of leisure, for sure. Just getting a chill here. This is what happens as you get older. You get hot and you get cold. So yeah, through COVID, we adapted a lot in rec therapy to support people making connections virtually. Many of the people that we work with are older population. Maybe they have some cognitive difficulties that make it hard for them to use technology, right? So it wasn't even necessarily connecting them to do the activity together online. It was teaching them how to use the technology online and troubleshooting with them. Also a learning curve for us, right? Like I didn't know, I guess, you know, we used Skype long time ago, but to use Zoom and use MS Teams and all these different modalities, it was learning for us too. But anyways, I got off track there as to what I was gonna talk about. But I think this is really a good connection and basis for what we do, that really the behaviors and the experiences and why people make choices help with their well-being. And that's the essence of, and this was like early on in the textbook. And I was like, oh yeah, like a good reminder for me of the, I guess the knowledge, the literature behind what we do. Because as you know, I've been practicing for coming up 24 years. And you just get into doing what you do, and to come and look at the textbook again and go, oh yeah, I implement that theory, I implement that idea in the practice that I do, but it just becomes kind of second nature. So that's kind of where I see those lines kind of getting bumpy, but behind it, there's still that straight and narrow knowledge. So that makes sense, because it made sense in my head. Okay, good. When I was thinking about it, I was also thinking as I was looking through the textbook, man, I should come and audit your class, shouldn't and just kind of reconnect. So this is a definition of recreation therapy, and I highlighted from the last slide to this slide that our role is to optimize the health and well-being of individuals with illnesses and disabling conditions. So we use leisure, recreation, and play as a treatment modality to support individuals to build up their capacity within each area of that well-being. So we call it PECS, physical, emotional, cognitive, social, and spiritual. So that's a good, I don't know, so I've had many students in my role, and lots didn't hear that acronym. It really helped me remember it. So that's a little tip and trick I give you. So I really see the connection between social psychology of leisure and recreation therapy when we talk about optimizing the health and well-being of individuals. So who do we work with? This is all off the ATRA webpage. ATRA is the Alberta Therapeutic Recreation Association. So we work with people who are experiencing physical, mental, emotional, cognitive, and social limitations that impact their ability, their attitude, and motivation to engage freely in leisure and to maintain a healthy and balanced leisure lifestyle. So I think the key words here are their ability, their attitude, and their motivation, because just perusing that good old textbook, there's you talk about the theories behind leisure attitude and theories behind leisure motivation and competence, right? So we'll get there, but I just want to highlight those few words. That's what hit me when I was reviewing this. This was really a good practice for me, Shin, to really go back and connect the dots again after so many years. So we work in various settings throughout the continuum of healthcare. We work in acute care, so places like the Royal Alec have, and the University of Alberta have recreation therapists. We work in rehabilitation. So of course at the Glenrose, community rehab as well, mental health rehabilitation, mental health acute. We work in the community. We have recreation therapists in home care and in home living. Assisted living, which is probably the most commonplace that you've heard of. So continuing care, long-term care, that type of thing. Day programs and private practice is becoming more and more common as well. We work collaboratively, I mentioned before, interprofessionally with different health professionals, so social work, OT, PT, doctors, nurses, dietitians, psychologists, physiatrists, psychiatrists, all along the continuum. We might not work side by side with them on team, but we can also work with them in consultations. So for example, when I worked in SRAP, we didn't have a dietitian on the team, but we had somebody we could call and connect individuals with if we had concerns. And you know, those concerns weren't always around weight gain. It was also, particularly in older adults, we start seeing weight loss and disinterest in eating and an inability to hold food down, that type of thing. Those are supports from dietitians as well. So it's really important to understand what our role is, what the other disciplines' roles are, so we know how we can work with them. And then we also know when it's time to refer. Like, that is not my area of expertise, is nutrition. I can talk to somebody about the Canada Food Guide, but I can't help them figure out a plan that's going to help support them to keep their food down or, you know, eat whatever that is. So it's really important to understand everybody's role on the team, so you know what you can do, what you can do together, and what you should, which is outside of your role that you shouldn't be doing to support individuals reaching their goals. Yeah. And then what do we do? So we are required to adhere to a standards of practice. So the standards of practice includes the APIDE process. So another good acronym. And okay, let's see if I can do this. It's assessment, planning, implementation, evaluation, and documentation. So if we don't engage in this process, we're not engaging in recreation therapy. We're probably engaging in recreation activity involvement or recreation programming. The piece that's important is that assessment. If we don't do an assessment, we don't know, we can't help identify with the patient or individual client resident what their goals are, because we don't know what their interests are. We don't know what their needs are. We don't know where leisure fits into their life. We don't know what kind of adaptations and adjustments might be required. And if we don't do that assessment, we might be putting them at risk because we're making assumptions and we don't really know the bottom line of the pathway to treatment that we should proceed with. And if we don't write it down, it didn't happen. So everything has to be documented in a chart. We adhere to a code of ethics. So behaviors, making sure that we are responsible, accountable, making sure that we are, again, not putting anybody at risk, because as a health professional, there is this power differential, right? So we ensure that we're not taking advantage of anyone or putting anyone at risk. So those codes of ethics are clearly laid out by a professional association. Typically, these are laid out by colleges, regulatory colleges. Like I said, we are in the process, an ongoing process of application for that. But ATRA is recognized by Alberta Health Services as the overseeing body, and does support that all rec therapists in Alberta Health Services are members of ATRA. And there's other reasons too, we'll get there. So what else we do? We do research. So we might not do research like a PhD does, but we can be involved in research with others. We have a program called the Research Challenge across Alberta Health Services for all disciplines to look at opportunities to engage in innovative practice, develop and engage in innovative practice. We are responsible to have ongoing professional development to ensure that our competence is maintained and up to date. We have the people that we see are more and more complex. They're not just coming in having had a stroke. Maybe they have diabetes. Maybe they have mental health concern behind that. So it's very complex, the people that we work with. And I was actually listening to a podcast this morning, well, the last few days actually, and the person was talking about competency in that, you know, if I would have just gone and gotten my degree and wrapped things up in 1999 and said, that's it, I know everything, I'd again be putting people at risk, because things have changed and improved and you forget things, right? So you have to have that ongoing. So we go to conferences. Even this for me, like I said, this is an educational opportunity for me too, because I came back and I reviewed again Dr. Walker's textbook and kind of reflected on my practice and what we do and why we do it. So that reflection on practice also helps maintain competency as well. So, and there's other theories that have come along the way, like motivational interviewing, behavioral activation. Those are all new things. There's new models within therapeutic recreation that have come along the way since I graduated as well. So health promotion, health protection model, that's a model that some areas of practice might use, and that's relatively new as well. It came out a few years after I graduated. So if I didn't continue my education and maintain and improve my competency, then I really wouldn't be benefiting the people that I am working with. The other thing that we do, one of my favorite things is building capacity in the community. So building partnerships with community agencies, and I can give you a few examples of some of the partnerships that we've done along the way. I'm getting off track, but we have 10 minutes. Okay. So like we've partnered with the YMCA to offer an adapted program. It's called Bridge to Wellness. And so it's a physical activity program that's adapted to meet the needs of our patients coming out of the Glen Rose, where they have a sense of community. And so our partnership, our piece of the partnership was providing education and support to the instructors to make sure they knew the adaptations and modifications required for that type of program. So there's really so many opportunities. We've partnered with Victoria Park Golf Course and the Golf Pro down there. We have a golf clinic. We have partnered with the City of Edmonton through mental health to offer different programs. There's several offered through the Community Linking Committee through mental health. So that community capacity building, because that's our end goal, is get people back into their community, wherever, whatever that means to them. So if we don't build that capacity in the community, then they're not going to be able to have that sense of belonging when they go to engage in activities of their choice. Okay, I better get rolling here. So what do we actually do? Like, so this is a quick example of our golf clinic. This is a fellow who experienced a stroke. He didn't want to get back to golfing. He because he couldn't do it the way he used to do it before. This took me like 2 years to get him to the golf course and do this and let him know that he could do it. It started out by simply running. He was referred to me and I did an assessment with him. He said, let's keep in touch. I said, okay. So I'd see him in the hall and I'd walk with him in the hall. How are you doing? You know, we have a program just like this where you can walk with others in the hall. You don't have to walk with me, right? So we started just like doing a walking program with him and then getting connected to others that had experienced similar things. So he had this connectedness and knew that he wasn't necessarily alone, a little bit of support, that peer support. He golfs. I saw him, he didn't want to go to the Bridge to Wellness program either. I said, well, how about you just come with me, try it once. If you don't like it, I'll never ask you again. So there I am in the front of the Glenrose talking to another person, giving them information about the Bridge to Wellness. And he heard it and he's like, you have to come to the Bridge to Wellness program. It's the best program ever. I'll be there. Are you coming on Thursday? Right? So this is a guy who didn't want to go. So building that rapport and taking that time is a big piece of what we actually do, and getting to know the person, right? And with that is the community capacity building as well. Okay, let's get into theory and practice before we run out of time. I saw this in the book too, good and psychologically deep leisure. So, I mean, Shin can probably go into more detail about what that really means, but the piece that I saw around that was that good leisure experience leads to happiness and well-being. So if we give somebody a good leisure experience, like this fellow, right, where he went and he knew that he belonged, he knew he had the skills, he knew how, he knew he had the support to explore adaptations, and he had a good leisure experience, and it led to support, I wouldn't say only that, but it led to support his happiness and well-being in the long run, where he can end up going and doing that independently. So I really liked that quote out of the book, and I'm sure you guys know exactly what page that's on, so you can reference back to that. That was another joke. It's okay. I don't plan on changing careers to stand-up comedian. Let me just make sure I stay on track here. So the flow experience, we talk about that a lot, and I've always held that in my head. So when I saw flow again, I went, yeah, we do that. And I'll give you 10 bonus points if you can even, I don't even know if I say Csikszentmihalyi, if I say that right. Can you spell it? Anyone? No, okay, that's okay. That's not a question on an exam, is how to spell his name, is it, Shin?
I heard it was that great for him.
So yeah, the underlying principles of TR really, like I talked about, we assess the needs, the interests, the barriers, and identify those goals. So within the flow experience, there is identifying those clear goals, having the challenge and the skill balanced, and providing immediate feedback, whether that's internally or externally, right? So we do that within rec therapy. We identify those clear goals with the individual. We don't set a goal for someone. And then when we're building the skills and the confidence for someone, we're making sure that those skills and the challenge is balanced so that they are not feeling overwhelmed and frustrated and say, no, I'm never going to do this again. They're at a state where they can feel successful by doing something, returning to something, or trying something new. And that immediate feedback can be like the positive reinforcement and the encouragement, but it can also potentially be, how about we try it this way? And I've always been very upfront, especially particularly in the pool with folks, to say, we're going to try this. It might not work for you, but that's okay. That's why we're here. we'll try something different. And just to put that up at the forefront always seems to help too. So they know there's no prescription for recreation therapy. We can't say, okay, we'll do 10 squats and 10 push-ups and you'll be fine 3 times a week or whatever it is. We really have to figure out with the person what works for them. The other one was the basic psychological needs theory. And what I drew out of that one was the autonomy, the competence, and the relatedness, or that sense of belonging. And I think we talked about that a little bit as well. We want someone to be making their own decisions about what they want to do, where they want to go and do these things, who they want to do the activity with. We want to give them that competence, so we give them the skills and the knowledge of how to do it. And a piece of that is also attitude within competency. So leisure attitude is something that we always ask people about. I'm just going to go to the next slide because that's where I'm at. These are actually the questions on our Connect Care, some of our assessment, right? So do they take initiative for their leisure involvement? Maybe not, so we have to work on motivation and behavioral activation. Do they experience boredom? Well, what do they do when they get bored? Do they sit and watch TV? So these are questions that we ask them. How often do they experience boredom? What do they do about it? And is it in the morning? Is it in the afternoon? Is it in the evening? So really teasing out all those questions. We ask them, like I asked you, can you identify the benefits that leisure brings you? So we might have to do a little bit of leisure education and talk about, you know, when you go walking, it helps with this and this and that, right? Beyond the physical components, which everyone can probably identify. We also ask them on a Likert scale to identify their current leisure satisfaction. So if they're like, yeah, I'm good, I'm a 5, I am highly satisfied with the things that I do on a daily basis in terms of my leisure, then that's our assessment. And we can probably say, okay, off you go, right? So that gives us an indication of how we might want to prioritize somebody as well. I always do this. I think I don't have enough material and then I talk too much. So, okay. So quickly, trends were really like innovative practice in recreation therapy. Whatever, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be technology involved, but we are using like 3D printers to print off like single fins for amputees, adaptations for grips on pens. So we're doing stuff like that. Another innovative practice is through virtual health, to have programs that are virtually based on the phone, even for some of our seniors, to get them connected. So it doesn't necessarily have to be through computer. I think that interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary practice is becoming more and more commonplace and more understood. We used to have more of a multidisciplinary approach. So we had all these disciplines, but never really connected. So the interprofessional approach is to really look at the collaboration and the communication to get people where they want to be. Issues in our field, well, I was really happy to see so many hands raised that you've heard of recreation therapy. The understanding of what we do and the value that it brings to Albertans and Canadians is always a process. We are always advocating for to be able to do therapeutic interventions and not just provide recreational activities, that they're really bringing value and meaning to individuals to reach their goals. And that leads into role clarity as well. There is a difference between recreation programmers and recreation therapists. So there's that therapeutic intervention piece that we've talked about with recreation therapists, and recreation programmers provide activities that are drop-in, that are accessible, that people can attend independently. We talked about opportunities. There's still opportunities for virtual health growth, more community partnerships, and more research. Sorry, I'm rushing through now. So we talked a little bit about this. It is a 4-year degree entry to practice requirement, and that ongoing continued competency is required. You'll see on the ATRA website, Shin suggested I filled in the blank. So the competency profile for recreation therapists in Alberta delineates the range of skills, knowledge, and attitude, which I was going to get you guys to read back to me because I think we've said it a couple of times, but now I'm rushing again. So all these competencies, this is what you need, your essential competencies for entry to practice. They intermingle until you build up to these area of leadership competencies. The pathway can be complicated. It can be complicated. The U of A offers no specific recreation therapy program. However, there are courses, if you look, that you can acquire, and even through other, I think there's linkages. It's complicated. Talk to your advisors. The University of Lethbridge does offer an after degree for therapeutic recreation as well. If you want to pursue this, I would suggest that you volunteer, you take an opportunity to job shadow, and that you become a member of ATRA as a student. There's lots of networking opportunities, there's learning opportunities, and bursaries, and I can't remember the other scholarships as well. So sorry to rush at the end there. That's a good trait. I'm over. So if you have any questions, I'll stay, but I know you guys have to get going. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Have a lovely Wednesday. Thank you.